if you're good, I'm good, and then I'm gonna get
All right.
rolling.
I think so.
You ready? Okay.
I as ready as I'll ever be.
I like that. So, Chris Van Noy-March, my goodness, a long time coming. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see
So,
you again.
dude, it has been great catching up. We did a catch up, and for everybody who doesn't know Chris, he's out in Australia now. We're from Indiana. I'm in Florida, and now Chris chased love and ended up out in Australia. How cool!
Yep.
I'm gonna set it up a little so that people know you. But we met in undergrad. I'm very grateful to have met you in, I think it was like one of the first, classes we ever took. It was like 111 or something.
I feel like it was like the intro to you were in the like intro to college class, but it was like it was like a technical class or something. Where it's
Yeah,
like one of those.
one of those fun ones. But I'm grateful to have met you because you're such a good dude, and you you and I connected right away. And I have always been appreciative of our friendship. And you always were an inspiration for me. And I don't know how much of it you know, but you were always really level headed. Um, and we'll dive into that. And I think throughout this interview, people will get to know that. But I want to set it up a little. We met in undergrad in Indianapolis at Purdue. We were highly involved in SIGGRAPH and still are since 2008. My goodness, we've slept on the
Yeah.
floor we shared with six of us in LA.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
That was a good time. We taught
Glad
in
that we kind of
Poland together.
Yeah, yeah.
We almost got lost in Poland. I mean, we were
Oh,
lost,
we
but we
were lost.
finally
But
we were lost.
we found our way back.
We found our way home together. You are chess extraordinaire. You beat my butt, and you continually beat my butt if I ever play with you. Um, and you lived in Vancouver for a while, and it's cool because Vancouver holds a special spot in my heart because I met my wife there at SIGGRAPH in 2014. And well, I'm going to set up a little bit about what you do now, and then we're going to dive into it and why you're doing it, how you're doing it, how in
Okay.
the heck you got there. You have worked on films and shows and animations such as Ice Age, Peter Rabbit, the Lego Movie, Avengers, and one of my recent favorite shows. And I know you're like, oh, I had a small part in it. Whatever. It's Apples for All Mankind. And
It's a very small part.
I mean, still, we're gonna dive into that, but everybody has their part to make it happen. So it's an important part. It's funny also, you took my position way back in the Multimedia Production Center
Yeah.
at our college. And that was cool because we both worked in the same spot there. But now you are an animator, you're a compositing and matte painter artist at Fin Design and Effects. But
Yep.
you've worked at Method Studios, Digital Domain, Animal Logic, Atomic Cartoons. I mean, I don't know if you've visited your IMDb and LinkedIn recently, but it's probably pretty
Uh,
cool to look back on.
yeah, I keep my LinkedIn more updated than my IMDb. But yeah, like I just like I'll add like my projects and stuff as they finish up and yeah, it's been it's been a it's been quite a ride. Like with the amount of like ping ponging and like just the volume of people that you meet. Just like because like each kind of studio has its own culture and like there are people that will like come and go and like we'll go through different studios and you'll see people again because
Yeah.
it is still fairly small of an industry relatively speaking and you'll like bump into people and see new people that have totally different interests and yeah it's been pretty good like
Seems exciting. I mean, how much experience you've gotten in this amount of time already is pretty impressive. Like,
yeah
I didn't even realize what you were up to some of the time. And then I look back and kind of catch up on what you're up to. And I'm like, dude, geez.
It moves quick.
It does.
Yeah,
As light.
yeah, even like especially like when I transitioned from like trying to like be full time like animation like so like an animator because I was like in school like we had like our 3D track and stuff and everything, and I was trying to go the animator route and then had small-ish success like just doing like small jobs here and there, and then um around that point was like where I kind of need to figure out like do I need to leave home because like the hubs of the business is like not it's not back in Indy. It's it was when we were in college it was still in LA mostly.
Yeah.
Vancouver was growing. London had its big core from especially the investment from like the Harry Potter films and like that culture of like film and theater. Australia's had like an up and a down and an up and a down. It goes with the cycles. Like that's like they film like the Star Wars prequels, Titanic, and like they film a lot of stuff here, like a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of infrastructure for filmmaking and narrative storytelling through like film streaming and DVDs. Still, there are still
I
some
think
DVDs.
I don't think people know that like Australia is a hotbed. I don't think that's
Yeah,
well known.
yeah, it's not. It's kind of interesting because like when you're in the business, like you're aware of like every kind of nuance of like this is why this location was picked. This is why
Uh-huh.
this show was filmed there because of a technology reason or like a production reason. Where like there are reasons in addition to like the tax and like tax incentives and like the economics of like how films are made, which since being it on this side of it, and like when you're in school and you're like you kind of see and you're studying it and you're like but what's it mean practical? Seeing it actually like, and you get to know like the producers, the people that are actually making those big decisions. Like it's actually pretty amazing that anything ever gets made.
I just read that the other day. Like it was a quote from someone quite famous, a director, and he's like, "It's a miracle that even one film gets made." And you
Yeah,
stick if you ever watch the credits, even a TV show, and
yeah.
especially now, but you see all those names. How many? How do you manage a pipeline like that? I mean,
It
what's your experience on like how they do it? How's it done?
I'm mostly a bystander watching all that heavy production stuff going on. Like if you have a good production team, like it really makes a difference
Sure.
of being able to like, because it's not even just like on the post production side of like I'm very familiar with how we have our material come in, we get whatever the show is like calling for. Like we got to add creatures into it, or we got to add backgrounds, or we got to remove stuff. We got to like change a costume up or something, make things look and do our little magic wizardry that we do. But then before all of that, you've got a whole team that's on set that is trying to even just create that material. But then even before that, you've got the production teams in LA or whichever like the main wherever the main client office is. They're trying to come up with the story in the first place, and then they got to secure the funding, they got to secure the
Right.
distribution, which that aspect of like I applaud anybody that goes into that because it's very nuanced and it's very complex.
And probably
To,
cutthroat.
it's pretty tough. Like Ginger would probably be a good person to talk to sometime about it because she has more of a footprint in that, in like awareness
Right.
of like how, because I just had like a brief run by one of our producers at work, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're so calm for like the amount of stuff you got to put up with, and
I
then they
feel
got
like
heard all of us that are like making the final pictures and putting it together, and
yeah,
they're like, hey, did you get your timesheets done? I'm like, I think I did. Oh no, I didn't. I'm sorry. Here you go. Like,
they've got to stay calm or else they'd be like going crazy. I run a pretty small operation in relation to what we're talking about. I'm itty bitty. I still have a team, and it's a lot. And then managing not only my team but all the clients and the correspondence, it's wild. And like with film, it's got to be a major focus on process. Okay, this happens and then this, and there's a check. But nothing's perfect, especially when you're talking about different teams at different companies, because it's not like, oh, this one, even with like if something's produced by Apple, like For All Mankind, they're still using other agencies to do, this or the compositing or whatever it might be. And that's wild.
Yeah, and even you could even break it down more because it's more because back in the day you'd have like one post-production studio doing all of the VFX or stuff like that. You'd have one now, but nowadays it's like a protection of your investment for the people that are financing the films because like the budgets can get pretty big, like worth of 200 million, like 300 million. I think I forget like Avengers Endgame was interesting because I was on that on the last couple months to help get that out the door, and there were a couple shots where like it's stuff that you would almost never see, but like the making sure that detail and like for future proofing the project and like if there's ever additional cuts and stuff, and so you have to make sure you have that coverage. So there's stuff like outside of the actual frame. So say like a shot is 4 frames, there's stuff on either end that isn't in the final cut, but it exists and for like that future proofing. So you have to work for, depending on the client budget and everything, of like how far you give like handles is kind of like the term. And yeah, it's quite a bit of work.
Yeah, people, even a podcast like this, it's less work, but people take it for granted, especially now. Music, film, podcast, documentary film production. People go, all you do is like sit on your couch and you're like, what do I want to watch? Play. And then you watch it and you're like, that was pretty good. And you're like, pretty good. We worked our asses off for 5 years on that thing or whatever it is. Yeah. But it's like the ease of accessibility. I don't know if you guys talk about it in the industry on your end with your teams, like, because it's kind of like music. I had a radio host on, and he was talking about the appreciation of music and the depreciation of music potentially that's happening right now compared to when before you had to go to the record store, you had to purchase a physical record, come home, and then put the record on. And now I'm listening to this record. There's like an appreciation of the effort that goes into it. Yeah. So you're kind of committed, rather than like, oh, I don't like that one shot, bail. And now I'm not watching the show at all.
Yeah, we had, like, it's come up in conversations off and on throughout in like my career, like, especially with the advent of like streaming and mostly people watching it on their phones because the accessibility of like, oh, I can just load up whichever service and pick whichever show, TV show, film that I want to watch. And because what you're seeing on your phone is definitely not the fidelity of what it's made to.
Sure.
Big so screen. Like, yeah, like a big screen, like there's like, and like when you get into like the macro economics of like it's gotten more expensive to go to the cinema, so it needs to be like it's being treated more as like it's a special occasion. Like there's like a good there's like a movie that you definitely need to see that's formatted as like you like it's an experience that you need to see. Mm-hmm. And I think like I've had thoughts sometimes like theater went through this in the past and it's gone through like life cycles because like film as we know it now of like just like you see it on like a screen projected either on like a white sheet or it's not that old relatively speaking compared to all the other forms of storytelling we've had oral storytelling ever since humans have been trying to explain phenomena around them to tell stories and carry it on through like the generations and then we get to a written word and that's been around. And then I think it's cyclical to a degree. But yeah, I think there is, like what you're saying, with the effort quotient of going in to have that appreciation. I think that does have a play into it. Because I still like going to the cinema, especially taking my oldest son, who's only 3, but he loves it. He sits through the whole thing and he's laughing. He's like, "That's funny. I love it." It changes like what I can take him to go see. So like, there's a film, like a big epic sci-fi thing I want to go see in theaters. I probably can't take my 3-year-old to go see it. So
it's wild. We have kids now.
Yeah. It's interesting though. Like speaking of the kids and like what they like. I think it's what I've worked on. Like my son loves some of the like smaller projects that I've worked on. Like he'll watch them on loop over and over.
What?
And over. Spidey and His Amazing Friends was one that I worked on, where I did a lot of background work. And he's like, "Oh, that's amazing, Dad! You worked on this one." And then my wife also works in the industry as like as a sculptor for like a front end, like client facing sculptor for feature films. And so she'll do like a you remember the old like behind the scenes Disney, like on those VHS tapes, or like at the end of the movie they would have a little like featurette, or it's like, this is how we made it. They got like the clay sculpts and they show like, this is the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and like all this is over there. Yeah, that's Mickey Mouse. That's so they stay on model. So my wife does that is digitally now.
Sure. Did she do it physically before?
She's done a little, but not, like, nowadays it's just so much more efficient and cost effective to do it digitally. So like ZBrush,
sure.
Like,
you're a production family. Do you think your kids are going to get into the industry? Because he's already like, "Oh my gosh, Daddy worked on that. How cool!"
He might like, yeah. It is funny because he'll go to like a computer that's just sitting off to the side that's not plugged in, and he'll be typing away. He's like, "I'm making my movie, and I'm doing this." And then it'll have a whole narrative of something of what's happening, and it's very cute. And it's like, oh, so it's something to engage with. And like for him, like, well, for both of them, for both kids, like I just want them to have an appreciation for like creativity and like art and just like expression.
Definitely.
And whether that fosters into like working in film or whatever film turns into, or other kinds of entertainment work or like storytelling. Like I just want them to be engaged with that creative artistic aspect for their lives.
Right. That's huge. Well, we kind of like jumped right in, but maybe let's take a step back. Why did you want to get into animation in the first place? What was the spark? Did you wake up when you were 3, 5 and go, "I want to animate"? I know you love Jurassic Park.
Yeah, so Jurassic Park was very influential because that's one, because like we're of the age where that came out when we were 4 or 5 years old. So I remember seeing that in theaters when I would have been about 4.5 when it came out. So I remember my aunt taking me to see it. It was a packed out theater, and just like how do they have these dinosaurs on screen? They look so real. Like
I rewatched it because I was working with Jeremy on some Jack Horner stuff, and he was the technical director, an advisor to all the Jurassic Parks. And I was watching like the first Jurassic Park and go, "This looks damn good."
Yeah, and it's filmed in a way to maximize the spectacle.
Yeah,
like even from just like the aspect ratio that it was selected to enhance the scale, the verticality, especially of the T-Rex. But it was yeah, it's my favorite movie. I might be biased, but
I was wondering. So you've already answered a rapid fire question. That'll happen in the future, so I don't have to ask that one anymore. Jurassic Park it is.
Yeah. But to answer the spark question, so like that was a fundamental memory for me. But when I was growing up, like I would like watch those featurettes, and I was always interested in how, like, especially like Disney movies, because that's kind of what I was more exposed to, like how they were being made. And then the Pixar films were coming about, and I was like, they look different, but I didn't have the vocabulary as a kid at that time to like explain exactly why they were different. But I was like, what? I don't understand. And then I'd see like how they're being made, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then as I got older, as most kids like that are in this kind of like this kind of a pathway, like I got interested in video games, and like you remember our Halo days, like I was like,
Oh,
maybe
man.
maybe I want to make video games. Like I like the aspect of like that process. And concurrently while this was going on, like I was aware of like Disney Imagineering. So like there's something about like the process of how things are made that I like in terms of like entertaining with storytelling and things like that. But I didn't know how to like kind of connect it all together. And then I was kind of getting towards the end of high school, and I was trying to figure out like where I wanted to go, and like what even just like which university I wanted to go to. And I was thinking of, because I really loved animals, and I was like, well, maybe I'm going to go into like veterinarian work, and because I had the scores to go to do that, but I couldn't handle some of the like the emotional aspects of it.
No way.
So
Yeah.
I was like, well, like I still like video games. I don't really understand like how this movie. I don't know how to go be a Disney Imagineer. I don't know how to do how Walt Disney made the studio. I don't know. Like I don't know how to get in there. Like my drawing skills aren't at the level of what they would need to be. So I was like, well, I can probably figure out how to do games. So then I found out through like when I was going through like the university programs and everything, IUPUI, but specifically to our Purdue program, like was our CGT program, the computer graphics technology, and they had something called the animation track on it. And it said like you can use that to branch into video game production or movie production. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I'll try that. And then I slotted into there, and that's where I very quickly was learning things I didn't know, and learning things I didn't know that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Of like it's possible. Like then that's around the time it was like very quickly like when like SIGGRAPH came into our lives. I was like, oh, so you can do this. Oh, you can do this. Oh, well, that looks pretty cool. Oh, maybe I should try that. Oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe I should try this.
It's a rabbit hole. Yeah. It's endless.
And then, so yeah, I kind of luckily found something that kind of like was that baseline, I guess, to kind of build the tree, so to speak, because like your career it's never going to be a straight line. It's going to be a bonsai, so to speak.
I like that.
Yeah, so from there, and then I kind of gravitated towards wanting to be an animator because it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I had some skill with it. So I tried to pursue that as like my focus when we were in our college days. And then I found I had a stronger attenuation towards compositing stuff after we graduated. Like I noticed I had a pretty good handle on manipulating imagery to make things look more like magic tricks, like where you're looking at something but it's not what you think it is. And then after, so I met my wife is the one that gave me like kind of the lead of like a chance of like getting like fully transitioning into the film industry, because I wasn't in film until what year was that? 2017? Yeah, 2017 I think was my first year on an actual film project. In like a film studio. But the way I got into that was my wife was at work. So she was at Animal Logic and then in Sydney. And then she said, hey, like they have this roto training program that they're going to be doing because I got a crew up for another project kind of somewhat soon. And they need to have people be able to do the work that you need to, get the project like through the processes and get it to final pixel quality. And I was like, okay, and like let me try that. And then she had me meet one of her industry mentors, and because at that point I was kind of like, it was like, do I keep chasing the dream, or do I try and do I just call it quits at that point? And he looked at my animation stuff, he looked at the stuff I could do compositing wise, and he's like, you're very close, and it would be a shame if you quit now. So I was like, so that gave me enough of like a boost of self confidence. Like, okay, I'm not that far off, because I always viewed everyone was like 3 levels ahead of me. Like, even in university days, like I always felt like I was in the bottom, like skill wise and like aptitude, which is probably not accurate. Like everyone's probably like more in the middle to some degree and like on the bell curve and everything. But that gave me enough confidence to be like, okay, I'll try. And then so I applied with a couple quick little things on like a really small demo reel, and they're like, yeah, you've got something that I think that we can level up. And then they taught me how to use Nuke in 4 weeks, and then they hired. Well, it wasn't at the end of it because they had to wait until like August that year. Then I was hired on to work on Peter Rabbit. I'm part of the Roto Paint team and did mostly like cleanup work and removal stuff, and then some set extension stuff, which was handy because then that parlayed, because I immediately went into matte painting on my next show, which, because I had a background in 3D and doing animation work and layout stuff when I was still living at home, that allowed me to have just enough of an understanding and background that I could leverage off of to do the things I need to do in a 3D matte painting experience.
What show was
that? That was Lego Movie 2. But that was when Jess and I ended up in Vancouver for a few years. So I was in Sydney 2017, and then we had our wedding, and then Jess was transferred over. So then we went over to Vancouver, and we were there until July 2021.
And then you've been in Australia since.
Yeah, I've been in Australia since then.
Out in the mountains.
Yeah, half and half. Yeah, because
right, like, you have to go into the town.
Yeah,
I was kind of wondering, what your day to day is like. We've talked a lot about what you worked on, and there's going to be a large number of people who have no idea what Nuke is, what compositing is, what matte painting is. So maybe paint a picture of what it is that you do. Maybe use an example of like what you did as a small piece on For All Mankind, or your favorite work that you've done, and like what a normal day's like. And maybe a day's not enough. Maybe what a week's like of working on these features. And by the way, as you're thinking, it is 1 week before 4th of July, and here in Florida, it's already Independence Day. So if you hear some fireworks as I'm talking in the background, that's the reason. They're already starting. It's ridiculous.
I thought it was a party for me.
Yeah, of course.
So where should I start? You
wake up. Do you drink coffee? I'm just kidding.
I not often, but if it's crunch time, I will grab a couple cups to.
I've heard Australia has like some of the best coffee. You guys are like snobs.
I mean, it's earned snobbery. It's very coffee is excellent here.
Yeah.
Like even the coffee you get at McDonald's here is better than what I got back home by far.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But I try
around.
Yeah, I try not to. A regular day. We'll start with that. I'll wake up. I'll preface this with like, so pre-COVID, it would have been like going into the office and then like doing like check emails, check your tasks, meet your production team, hit your tasks, have dailies, make sure everything's, there's no issues happening with the show, or your task or anything that's blocking you, that's not letting you complete your task. Keep getting the iterations to get your shot done, get them in for review so the show supervisor can have a look at everything, make sure everything is hitting the client brief, and make sure you eat lunch. Australia, we love our tea time breaks, our 3 o'clock, like 4 o'clock tea time breaks.
Nice.
It's very like you work hard here, but you get a lot of relaxed camaraderie.
That's great.
Like it's really nice. So that was so pre-COVID, that would have been like every day, kind of like that. Post-COVID, so working from home became a reality and a possibility for like the whole industry. Like you really weren't allowed to work remotely. Like it was very rare to find, because you'd have to have the trust. You'd have to have the experience, for one, and then you'd have to have the skill in self-managing yourself, and then you'd have to be able to have that trust with not only just your internal team, but then the client side team has to have the trust in your studio's team to even allow someone to not be fully secure in a like the network security, because like everything's kind of, because you're essentially you're working in a like a VPN within a VPN, basically. So it's like a server that's like not touching anything externally.
They keep films quiet until they release.
Yeah, that was something I was very impressed by. It's like there was like, I think there might have been one leak that we heard about from somewhere back in North America, but it was like one of the client studios producer's teenage kid or something like took a photo, and that's what the leak was. It wasn't from the thousands of people that were working on the project, like around the world. Like, so I was impressed with like the level of professionalism and like in respect for like security, because like that allowed and showed that like working from home is viable, and it is helpful to have that flexibility.
Right.
So post COVID now for me, I work from home currently usually 3 days a week, and then I go into the office 2 days a week. So my 3 days from home, I'll wake up, get my son ready for daycare, help get my newborn, kind of get him ready, and then take him to daycare, come back, try and quickly have breakfast, log on like through our VPN service that we use, and then do the usual stuff just from home, check in with the production team, just like message like whoever the show is that you're on. Sometimes you're on a couple shows, but usually it's like one person that you're like, hey, here's what I'm working on, here's where I got to last night, here's where I'm hoping to get by the end of the day. I don't see any issues with this, but there might be something with this. And we double check to make sure this stuff is ready. I'll probably be able to touch it like probably after lunch. And then you just get to work, and then you'll have like your scheduled times, like meeting for dailies, and dailies for people that don't know, it's
just about to ask.
Yeah, it's for when the artists on the team and the production and the leads will come together, and we'll look at the shots that you're working on, or the asset. If you're on like a creation, like an asset creation, they're like, okay, this is working. With the client, kind of on the last phone call we had with them, they're kind of feeling like we need more of some kind of, like, it could be any kind of emotional feeling that they're trying to pull from the project, like from the film and the shots. Like they're like, we need more danger for this part, or we need a little bit more light so we can justify why this is lit in this shot and not in this other one. So then you cross those notes in, and you're like, okay, and then you do like the technical things to make sure like your edges are like working out, things are making logical sense, and like why things are stitched together. Because to define compositing, because I realize I haven't done that. So compositing is you're taking
Read my mind.
different elements that have been photographed or computer generated or so some cases some scanned, like from like film. Like one I just finished a show that we it was filmed on film stock.
Hmm.
And then you get all of those elements to like sit and look like it was literally just take, it was just, that's what it is. That's what they came out of the camera looking like that. That's our goal.
They fit. That was it. They like it was all filmed.
Yeah. It's
together.
all as like one thing.
Right.
That's the goal. And like, it ranges like from huge replacements of like environments or to even something as small as like, we got to replace some signage on a street because legally we can't have this company be in the background, or we need to change the narrative or the location, so we need to change a couple things here. The actor got an injury on their eye, so can we paint that fix on their eye? Or sometimes it'll be like, you got the actor had the wrong prop in their hands, can you remove the prop and then put a new one? So then you have to involve that's a little bit more complicated. You have to have like more people involved and remakes the thing,
and the shadows and every shot by shot, frame by frame. I mean, that's the thing. It's editing a photo like in Photoshop. All right.
Yeah.
It's moving.
Yeah. 24 times. So like 1 second of film is generally like 24 frames. So 24 photos, and then you get like 1 second. Unless you're doing higher frame rate, which then you can get like 48 or 60 or 120. And
have you ever watched Parks and Recreation, that show?
Yeah, I watched the first couple seasons before.
Did you ever hit the spot where the guy he has like a break in work, he's trying to figure out to what to do in accounting, and he picks up animation, he does claymation, and he's I've been working on this for like the last week, and he presses play, and it's like the guy just is like do and he sits up from the bed, and then it ends. He's like, something's wrong, and he plays it again, and it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I can't not think about that. It's so perfect. It's such a perfect illustration of how long it takes to do something.
Yeah, like stop motion is an excellent art form to like kind of what we're talking about, like that appreciation of like that effort that goes into it.
Oh my gosh,
like it has a special quality to it because like just the sheer amount of time and energy that goes into creating those projects is like, it's not just you're moving the puppets and the miniatures and everything frame by frame by frame by frame, but you got to create the whole environment. You have to keep the lighting consistent with the bulbs because the bulbs will die out over time. You have to worry about the temperature because like there are like real world aspects, like unless you're going to film miniatures as big as us, which would then not be very financially practical, there's like different intensities of light you have to have special consideration for like the lensing because things can feel too small or too big.
Yeah,
I mean it's a lot of effort. Like it's beautiful. Like when like even like student projects, like when they're like make their like 3-5 minute shorts for like SIGGRAPH at like the animation festival, like it's an achievement to finish a project.
Absolutely, especially it's a smaller crew on those shorts. And that's I always liked how Pixar did shorts. But before I forget, I want to ask you, because you were talking about specifics of like compositing. What is there something that really stands out with one of the films that you worked on where you're like, that was so much fun changing this or adding that?
From a transformative aspect, that's like, well, I mean, there's a couple different ones. So a recent film I worked on was called The Creator. And that's when I was at Finn. It was really fun to transform these plates. So the director, what he did was he because he actually had the budget down like pretty small, like for the show. So what he did, he took a small crew and went and did a lot of location shooting, and then he edited his film in a way that was designing like, okay, I have my performances how I have, but I don't really want everyone to be in like motion capture suits and stuff, because I know I'm going to replace a few people with like digital, like Android heads and stuff like that, machine parts, and oh, pardon me. There's going to be sci-fi buildings and like cities that are growing with like monolithic structures, and so like from like the film plates that he gave us, and then like as a team, like changing and like evolving those into this beautiful like project. And like we got to work on it with ILM, and I think Mars also worked on it, which is in Toronto. But it was like only a handful of studios got to work on it. But it was like it was really, that was a cool one to work on. And in terms of like magic tricks, so on Avengers Endgame, I did a lot of costume and beauty. It's called costume and beauty repair. So like you have people in like costumes and whatnot, and like, but like on set, like they're not built like, they're built for the screen, so they're not always going to be, unless it's like the hero prop that's got to be handled by like hundreds of people, and it's got to kind of hold up to like, you know, people pulling on it or dropping it or spilling stuff on it and getting torched by flamethrowers, or it could be anything. So like you'll have like the team come in, like the makeup team and the costume team, they'll like get them looking like as best they can for the screen, but then you know, the actors doing their stunts, and like things will happen, like their costume will rip and stuff. So there's one character, I'm trying to speak generally because I don't know how much I'm allowed to be specific on like exactly what I did on it, but there's one character that is like not human, that had to change a fair bit to make it look, to make the character look more metallic. This is kind of tricky to say this without saying what
I was wondering. And I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah. So like but like people that watched it, and like there's a couple shots that were like maybe 3-4 seconds long, so you get enough time to settle, and they'll look at it and be like, I have no idea what you did on it. And I'm like, I mean, that's a compliment. I mean,
yeah, I was just about to say that's a good thing, right?
That's like, well, that person's head isn't their head. Their arm was removed completely with a different arm. The part around the person's face, I had to like reshape because the stuff wasn't attached. The eyes were different. Like it was like, it's interesting. Like when someone's like, I really can't tell exactly what you did in it. And it's like, I got the magic trick. You'll see a lot more of those in like period pieces and shows like that, because like you're not expecting a visual effect or something digitally created to be inserted in it, or something removed, or you're expecting a building to be like, oh yeah, this was filmed in London, and like actually it was filmed in Atlanta, like in summer, like, and that's not snow, that's painted snow that was added afterward. There's a
People
great
don't realize even some of the small stuff, you know, something that doesn't seem like it would be a CG show or film that would have a lot of CG, all the stuff that actually goes into it that they just have no idea. Yeah. Like, that had special effects? Really? Huh.
Yeah, there was an example, like when the Queen's Gambit came out, like I didn't work on that one. That was done by, I want to say Chicken Bone. It's the company that worked on that one. Maybe don't keep
Some
this
funny names of studios.
Yeah. But anyway, so that studio, they had a handful of like very good invisible effects of like shots of like the orphanage in the winter. They augmented, if memory serves me right, they augmented the snow because the snow wasn't like as the full coverage, but they also added like more trees to add more shot composition for like wiping the screen, and which is like a transition technique for editing. And you know, watching it, you're not expecting it, and like I was watching for enjoyment, so I didn't catch that until I was like, there will be times like when you work in this business, like you can definitely pick up on stuff in real time if you're like watching it. but the goal is to kind of get you to be lost in that moment.
Right.
Just
Exactly.
to not really think about it. It's harder for people that, that are more aware. It's kind of like magic shows. Like there's a magician named Asimov who he was on a podcast similar recently, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but he went into detail of like the interesting effects that happens when you reveal a trick, where you let someone know and just enough to have an appreciation for the art of what's happening, but still have that excitement.
Right.
Like I love illusionists. I love magic shows. Like I'm tickled when I go to them. They're
Same.
like I'm loosely aware. I know how some things go. And it's the same thing with like visual effects and how films are made. Like, because like you're making things like for like this rectangle for people to view things through, but they don't see everything that's outside of that crop box, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So things are cheated for the screen. And like for matte painting, that's, like the actual, so the definition of matte painting is like you're painting a matte, which is basically a mask to allow the film to shoot a negative, like the negatives are being processed and like on the stock and everything with something that's been painted on glass because it's translucent, and then it's embedded in on the one piece of film. And that's where like the earliest parts of matte painting. So like you'd have people like get into these positions. You'd be out on location where you're going to be doing your shots, and like you're like, oh, we need a castle for this like army to be walking towards. So you set up the glass pane, and then you'd have your matte artists like very quickly, because the sun is changing every second in the day. Clouds are moving, so he has to be the artist would be very quick to go in, paint, get it looking like to match like what they're got to do, make it as real as they can, set it up in front of the camera, shoot, get the shot, go to the next shot.
It's wild. Such detail. You think about like what we do as humans with our time and our efforts. And, entertainment is, art, like when you're talking about art, music, film, if we didn't have it, it would be a pretty bland life. But it is sometimes interesting the amount of time it takes to do some of this stuff. I can't help myself sometimes think, it is interesting that we could fix a few things elsewhere. And I'm in no way saying, oh, we shouldn't do film or anything like that. But it's just interesting when you step back and kind of look at what we all do with our time. How much planning goes into even fake sports, the fantasy leagues, or whatever it may be, games. And it's just, it always interests me. But again, we would have a really bland life without it. But, every time I talk to people, like I talk to a makeup artist, I've talked to Frank Tai, who works at Pixar, who we're friends with, it's like, my goodness, you work many days, many people for 1 second of a film. It's just, it's interesting, it's impressive, it's inspiring, and it's kind of weird. I don't know if you ever...
No, yeah, it's something
that ever hits you.
Yeah, it hits me often. I'm like, ugh. But the thing that brings me back is kind of observing the audience, and like seeing those moments of joy and escapism. Because like life is hard. Like it's like it's very hard raising kids. It's very hard holding a job and making sure like everything's paid for, and you're trying to like thrive and not have the stress about, the car breaking down or the tree fell in the house, or these are extreme examples, but
literally 2 of those things kind of just happened to me in the last week. But continue. Yeah. I very much understand.
Yeah. So like you have like, and to your point of like, you have to have something that provides meaning for your life. Like,
right.
And like for like, it is a privileged position to be able to work on shows that there is somebody out there, there is an audience out there that just loves like what you work on. Maybe not everything you work on, but there'll be like something that somebody somewhere, they're having a hard day, or they're feeling nostalgic, or they need a good laugh. So they'll put the show on, like, and for that hour, like 30 minutes for like however long the project is or the show, and they have that moment of peace, which is,
Yeah.
and then you can then extend that to like the communal aspects of it. So like when you're in the cinema, like one thing that was like really cool. So it's not lost on me because like Avengers Endgame was like the last of like the main core of like the Marvel cinematic run of like, that's the Avengers saga of or the Infinity Saga, I should say. So of like started in 2008, I think, with Iron Man 1, and then 2018, I think it was 2018. So about 10 years, maybe 2019. So it was about 10, 11 years where, if you remember, like every summer, there's like a major blockbuster movie coming out that's building this huge overarching narrative.
Right.
Like what's kind of cool is that there are people that had kids during that time frame that took their kids, and their kids are growing up having those, like, this is our summer thing. They get to share this thing with our kid or kids, and then, or our friends, or like our family, like anybody, like they share it with another person, and they have these, it's like, oh, this is going to be really cool. Like, oh, my favorite superhero is going to have a big moment. Is this like the stories? Oh, what's going to happen? And then, so I got to work on the capping stone of it at the very end. And then it was kind of cool to see at the theater, because my wife and I went before, because the studio I was at the time did a screening, but that was like a few days later. So we went, it wasn't opening night. It was probably the night after, because tickets were sold out. So I watched the audience a fair bit. And it was really cool seeing these like parents with their kids just like super excited. And like the kids were about like 12, 13 years old. So they grew up with the films and had that bonding experience. And then, so they'll always have those memories. Like I have a memory of my aunt taking me to see Jurassic Park when I was 4. My mom took me to see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs when I think that came out before. So I was even younger when that came out. So I was like 4 and 4.5. So like that summer time frame for me of having those films, and then you have those bonding moments. Like my grandma.
There's bonding after, when people talk about the show or the movie online or in conversations, and they deconstruct it or come up with their own theories.
Yeah, those are always fun. Like when, to be granted, like when I was working on Endgame, because like the movies are split across studios, so you only get certain sequences. We had some pretty spoilery sequences, but I still could not figure out how I was like, okay, narratively, I know how this has to wrap up, but I don't know how they're going to get from A to B. And if this, like, if like, when does this happen? Like, I don't know where it's sit in the cut, because you don't get the full cuts usually if it's on a very big show like that. You get like this. So
that's an interesting thing.
So I'm trying to figure out. I was like, how does this work? I have no. It's supposed to be 3 hours long. Like, how is this going to connect?
How did they get here?
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. Do you like what you're hearing? Have you been thinking about starting your own podcast for your business? Well, we here at Naaman Creative can help. With our audio services ranging from custom music scores, podcast production, sound branding, and so much more, we can elevate your business needs with our audio services. So feel free to reach out to us today, and we'll be happy to help you get something started right away.
It's interesting because a lot of people, again, don't know that when someone's working on a film, even actors, seeing, well, maybe actors, they need to know some stuff to be able to act properly and to know the full narrative. But like a production team, well, we only need to do this big explosion. We've only been hired to do the explosion at the end of the film. And you have no idea what the film is going to be until you watch it when it's out. How wild is that?
Yeah. Yep.
It's such an interesting realm. And I totally understand why you're drawn to it. For me, I don't get to work on films. In the future, Naaman Creative will probably produce documentaries and do different things. We do podcasts, but even just what we do, websites or logos, whatever, that production process of like, this was not anywhere in the world. This was not a thing. It was blank. And now it's a thing that people can connect with and feel or touch or listen to or watch. It's pretty incredible. And it's a neat power. Like, you keep bringing up magic. And I love that, like, comparison because it really is. Like, people, it's been a term over so many years, the magic of movie making or whatever, it truly is magic.
And I like to touch back on the professional magician Asimov, like what he says, like you can still have like a deep appreciation for something if you know about it. Because there is like nowadays there is like a backlash, like, oh, this is CGI and this is not great, and that's why films are terrible these days. And like, that's not really accurate.
Whatever. No.
But there is a fantastic series on YouTube called this is why I was saying with my notes. I left my notes. I had it written down, but it goes on like why he breaks down like all the examples of like CGI, like what exactly is CGI, what is visual effects, like what you think is not CGI is actually CGI, and like the actual artistry quality. And he does a very beautifully eloquent way of breaking it down. I'm gonna try and look it up. You can
let me know, and I can put it in the show notes. You don't have to do it in real time.
Oh, but we must.
Oh, okay.
Multitask.
Usually in the studio now, we're gonna give Jordan a microphone soon, and we're gonna just be like, Jordy, pull that up, like people do. Like,
yeah, you pull it aside, like research, quick, keep it real.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there's such nuances to everything. I compare art forms of all kinds and everything we've talked about. For me, I'm not in film really, but music has kind of always been my life, and I always see similar threads on, like you were talking about in the frame and what people don't see outside of the frame. Same with recordings on like drum tracks or guitar tracks or songs, what you don't hear, all the failed attempts, all the wrong notes, all the extra stuff, or the fillers where you wouldn't even know that that's in the song unless you isolated all of the different things and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't even hear that, but it's actually what makes the song. You know what I mean? How it is, like it creates the atmosphere. And that's what sets the tone and the vibe. Because without that, it would make the song feel weird. And it's same goes with film.
Because we touched about this a little bit when we had our pre-show catch up, like with how I went to go see Slipknot like for the first time, and then it was broken down for me of like how the turntables are done and used, and like the sampling is used, and how the specific types of percussion, and it's causing a specific kind of feel you don't get if you're trying to imitate it. And it's just to add like an example to like what your point is. It's very interesting. It's really awesome. Like when you get someone who's passionate and really is excited about like sharing knowledge or like what they do, to explain and like show things, and it's like a revealing of the magic trick. Basically, it could be even like the what's the those YouTube series of like there's like people that come in like different professions. Like you'll have like a structural engineer, you'll have someone who studies like blood diseases, you have someone that does primatology, and like maybe like this is primatology support, or it's like I don't know, Twitter or like Twitter interview, or I'm forgetting. I'm really blanking on the names.
It's kind of like
It's
how I built this, or like how it's made kind of stuff.
it's kind of in that same vein, but it's like
Yeah.
like small interview. Like we'll have people write in questions like through like I don't know, like Twitter or
Oh, like
TikTok.
AMAs.
Yeah, it's basically an AMA, but it's like filmed and like they'll describe. And it's like from all kinds of different
Mhm.
like specializations, and
It's
so sometimes
awesome.
I'll have them play on the side. Like I usually have that, or I'll have like Adam Savage's like his like like his like when he's like doing his story time or his like his Q&As,
Huh.
because like he'll just like explain stories and those stuff and like relay lessons he's learned professionally. I'll have those like kind of playing in the background when I just need noise, and like, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
then I'll have like my series of like podcasts that I'll listen to, and then have my music mix, and then
Sure.
try and do what I got to do when I got to do it. But I did find the name of the thing that I was talking about. So the series is No CGI is really just Invisible CGI, and it's done by VFX supervisor Jonas Ussing. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, but he did a beautiful job breaking down this sense of like what the audience is feeling, like why there is like a feeling of like why there is a valid feeling of like why they're feeling that way, but like why it's more nuanced.
Yeah.
And it breaks down like things that like, and he has amazing examples of like why things you think are real are definitely not real.
I love that. I'm obsessed with this. There's a podcast called Song Exploder.
Yes.
And they break down a song with the band, which is cool because the band talks about like their demo, and then, oh, that's how we got that tone. You just geek out so hard on that stuff because it's like never ending. That's actually why I think SIGGRAPH has been so powerful. I mean, there's so many reasons why, and we've mentioned SIGGRAPH for anybody who doesn't know. It's the Special Interest Group on Graphics. It's the largest computer graphics organization in the world, and there's 2 conferences every year. Pixar and all the greats are there, and they're showing how they do stuff, how they do fluid dynamics for the waterfall and, you know, whatever it might be in Up, or, you know, hair, or this, and they're just helping each other, teaching each other, showing new technology. It's so cool that, you know, people don't necessarily just keep it to themselves, that there's so many people out there who go, look, I made this. I want you to know about it because we can make cool stuff together, and I want to see what you make with it. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It's a very sharing and like very fostering environment.
Yeah. Indeed.
I'm just reflecting back on all the SIGGRAPHs we've gone to, and
my goodness,
it's kind of cool seeing like there's like the very technical research, like cutting edge research that's like presented in like the poster section that like, you know, as a you know, youngin, I had no idea what was going on. I was like, I don't understand any of this math, like, but then it becomes relevant like 6 years later, and it's the core reason why this other company got an Oscar and why this medical company has incorporated it, and now they can do X, Y, and Z procedure at half the time. Like, it's very cross-disciplinary.
Absolutely. There's so many cool things that SIGGRAPH has produced for me now, and I picked up on it in 2009 or whatever. There's actually, maybe it was in 2009, Lindsay Oliveris had a short animation that was just absolutely gorgeous, and she did like a talk just for the student volunteers that year, and I loved her style. I was obsessed with it, and it was so well done, and I just thought it was so cool. And you know what? I was watching a film. It was last year, and I go, my goodness, that reminds me so much of Lindsay. I can't not. She had to have worked on this or something like that. And sure enough, the credits came and there was her name. And I was like, oh my gosh, that style that she had done as a student, you know, and making this animation, and that was epic. She has now carried that to feature. It was the coolest thing. I was like, oh my gosh, and I pinpointed it. You know, it's just so neat. But I mean, so we could geek out on this stuff forever.
Days.
And yeah, I mean, I think it'd be cool also. I'd like to get like a SIGGRAPH panel on here and have you a part of that, Zeb. You know, you, Zeb, and Frank have been on the podcast so far, and I'm working my way through the SIGGRAPH greats. Josh Grow is on my short list next. Maybe Jeremy, Ginger, you had mentioned. You know, there's so many people who are doing such cool things that we knew we had met where they didn't know anything, just like us, and now they're running the show or, you know, integral parts. I mean, how cool is that? It's just wild.
One thing that I love about SIGGRAPH too is that it's like for me nowadays too, it's more of like it's an excuse to have a reunion. Like
100%. That's half of it now. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Like the SIGGRAPH Asia was here in Sydney back in December. Was it December or November? It was like early December. So I got to see a few people I haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
Just because like the nature of like, you know, moving back and forth, like moving from Indy to Australia and then to Canada and then back to Sydney and then COVID locking everything down and then having kids and realizing it's very expensive to fly 4 people across the planet.
Really changes the game.
Yep.
But it's worth it.
A little bit more, yeah. A little more accounting. Because like to touch on the theme of like magic, it's really awesome to see like the wonder of like kids experiencing something for the first time and being excited.
Totally.
So a lot of times like I'll watch both my kids how they're watching things, and it's
Dad,
pretty.
Watch it. Stop watching me.
They're like, Daddy, did you see that? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
I
saw you saw it.
I saw you saw it. I also remember Daddy worked on this one, so I already know. I know what the 3 things it was before. This was what it was like.
How cool is that? I can't wait to at least like show my daughter some of the songs and work on songs with her and stuff like that. It's definitely a special thing. But we, like I said, we could talk forever. There's some main questions I want to ask you that I ask most of my guests. Okay. And then we'll just conclude. But so this portion is called the rapid fire. Pew, pew. Here we are. You've made it, and you've done such a swell job, Chris. I didn't doubt you for one moment. And let's see how you do here. So these are meant to be answered as quick as you can. But if you need to elaborate, obviously there's no rules. Okay. It doesn't matter. But we are keeping points, and the points don't matter. Like who's line. Remember that show?
Yeah, I was gonna say like for keep it quick because I can wax on a little bit.
This is going to be a challenge for you. I had a lawyer on, Doug Jackson. Actually, I'm wearing his hat right now, and it was hard for him too. All right, you ready?
All right.
What?
All right.
Is your biggest? Oh, okay. You ready? Now you're ready. Got to get that big old breath in. What is your biggest source of inspiration?
Ooh, nowadays. Oh man, this is hard because it depends on the thing.
They're not meant to be easy.
Oh man, I'll say experiences from life. I'll try and keep it general, I guess.
Life,
and then the elaborative one. So like cloud watching. Like I love like going out in nature and like going on walks with my kids and like just watching the views up in the mountains and stuff in the clouds. Or like in Vancouver, like our apartment had like a nice view that we could see down east of Vancouver on the mountain ranges, so we could see like the cloudscapes and stuff. And I'm pretty fond of that, and just seeing how things are going on in the world and then like how my kids are interacting with it now is a different perspective. Yeah, I guess is experiencing life.
Love
Source of information.
Yeah, that's huge. I would agree with that. For me, it's hard to pinpoint. So I'm glad I'm the one asking the questions most of the time. So what is
like
your favorite
podcast?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, I'm like,
I guess that makes sense. Weird when I'm on a guest on other podcasts, I'm like, oh man, it's hard to answer.
Yeah.
You know, when someone asks a question that I normally ask, I'm like, actually, I haven't had time to think about my answer. And I like that. I like that because something comes out. Do you have a favorite book?
Ooh, favorite book. So most books, pardon me, most books that I go through are generally more referential. Let's see, a favorite book. It's hard to specify just one book.
I know they're not meant to be easy questions.
I will repay this someday.
I like that. That's cool.
This on a live stage, like a fireside. Oh, Mr. Josh, I have some questions for you. As I'm trying to find time to answer this question.
I know.
I don't know. So the Harry Potter books the series were pretty big for me when I was a kid.
Great.
Yeah, they were. So those were big. The Isaac Asimov books. So the Foundation series was pretty big on me.
Which now I own your books, which you gave me. And I see why. Not all of them. No.
Okay. Oh,
I'm working my way through them. But dude, they are so good. Right up my alley.
Yeah, it gives. Yeah, it's. I knew you dig them.
Yeah.
Like I gave you those books, and I had like other books that I gave to other people, and I was like, I think this person will like these stack. So when I was like clearing out my life back home before I moved, it was like, except like this person will use this. This will still get used.
I was honored when you gave me those. It means a lot.
They went to a good home.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's got, so there's like this little things in other books that I pick up on. Like The Illusion of Life is still like a classic animation book. I still go through chess books, which it's more technical, I guess, and it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea.
No.
But
Are you kidding me?
But you'll find like different ideas and creativity, and then like when you're in that moment of like playing against somebody and like things are unraveling and you have like that story of that game is very likely to be unique because like the permutations of how the pieces can move, like it's very likely the game you're playing has never been played before.
That's crazy.
The math is very.
How many permutations are there?
Someone made a joke once that it's more than the grains of sand on Earth or something, like the actual calculable numbers.
Yeah.
Now, grains of like the actual practical games is much, much smaller than that.
Right.
Like when you get two people who know what they're doing, it probably won't end up like a crazy shootout game. Like it probably won't end up like that.
Yeah.
But you'll get these moments of creativity, and there's like anecdotes and stories from like old grandmasters that will explain their thought processes, and some of them will have like some very creative daydreams of like why they played a way they played, of how they're trying to explain. Like one guy, he was trying to explain his thought process of like how to get this person to stop playing so defensively. He's like, I sat there for 30 minutes and was like pulling a hippo out of the swamp. So he's like sat there thinking about how you would actually mechanically engineer pulling a hippopotamus out of a swamp. And it just left him with the creativity of like, oh yeah, I guess I would probably try to give it something. And then it unlocked like a problem solving chain for him, and he figured out how to just add pressure to this guy. So that was his unique way of thinking. And then the other guy had a post interview, and he's like, he looked very serious and was very contemplative. I knew I was in trouble. He was thinking about how to actually literally move a hippopotamus out of a swamp. So Yeah. Yeah, so you get like
interesting.
interesting stories like that. Like,
that's cool.
Yeah. So like chess books, like they can be dry, but sometimes you'll get a few that have like some interesting. It's like biographical insights, and it's like, oh, that's
Sure.
Uh,
Well, if you're interested in stuff, whatever it is, a book like that is not dry if you're super geeking out on it, so it's to each their own. You know, chess is a really fun game. Like you kind of opened my eyes to a little more when we were playing in Poland in the evenings when we wouldn't go out and get lost. But it's like, there's so many levels to it. You were just telling me you've been playing with Vance since 2013 on however many hundred games. Shout out to Vance. But yeah. Okay. Moving on. Besides Theosin, do you have a favorite musical artist or album?
Yeah, right now it's Sleep Token and their recent
Hell yeah.
Take Me Back to Eden.
Cool.
Like I got to see them live recently and it was pretty good. Yeah, so Sleep Token,
pretty good.
Slipknot and Spirit Box and then Linkin Park. They're like my core core list right now.
Linkin Park's always great. Did you listen to Tesseract?
I was gonna say, like, I didn't, like, after our catch-up call, like I went outside and I was chopping up some firewood, and then I had everything ready to go under the house again to put some more insulation. I had it ready to go, and then that's when all the kids came back to the house. I'm like, well,
yeah,
that'll be next week. And then
right on.
Yeah, so
I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, it's on my queue, on my little
cool beans. So you've named your favorite film. What is your favorite film that you've worked on?
Oh, this is kind of hard because now I got to remember everything I worked on.
What stands out to you the most? There's just like, that was a blast, from the team to the shots I worked on to the final piece.
Because each show has its own flavor, and there's aspects of each show that are enjoyable.
Yeah.
For different reasons. Like for Peter Rabbit, like I loved the team I was on. Like it was such a strong fostering environment to like where, like actually quite a few of us, like after that show, very quickly moved up into different role, like higher ranking roles. Like very quickly. Like the supervisor was very invested in making sure we were put in positions to succeed and build confidence.
That's awesome.
And I've been, like, to touch on it a little bit, like to do a tangent, like I've been pretty lucky in my career, even all the way back to when we were working at the Multimedia Production Center, like with Nate. I've had bosses that were invested in me developing and happy for my success and willing to let me make mistakes and learn from them. And then put me in positions to grow like the intangible skills that come with like working in a professional environment.
I think that's what makes our industry a little more unique. You think of some other industries that might be hyper competitive where they actually don't really wish you success, in certain ways, or want to keep trade secrets or whatever it may be. That's really awesome that you've experienced that.
Yeah, I've been very lucky because I mean, it's nature of life. Like, not everyone has the same experiences, but like I've been very, very lucky. Like from like the film jobs I've had, and then even before that, like when I was working at like a news company doing advertising stuff, and then at the university when we were working doing the print shop work and ad design, like.
Yeah,
been very lucky. Like, yeah, so I try to like, this is something that I try to do. This is something that was on my notes. I'm going to try and make sure I bring up so like kind of like in terms of like a gratitude thing, or in terms of like, there's two spots. It's two similar thoughts. One is like, so like I try every so often to try and write actual physical letters, thanking people for like what they do and how they had an impact on a positive impact on me. And there was a podcast I listened to recently where they're talking about like mental health, and there's an exercise that you can try where you ask, like, you can pick an arbitrary number. It's got to be at least like 15 people, so you get like a good sample size. But say you pick 100 people that you know in completely different aspects of life. Like, so like you have your family, you've got, you know, for our case, like our SIGGRAPH colleagues, you know, film colleagues, we've got hockey, we've got our basketball team, we've got our chess, like we have our each little pods of like what makes us us, and it's different configurations of Lego for everybody. But then you ask people in those groups that know you, and you ask them, can you describe a moment in time where I was at my best? And they don't have to answer it right away, because it's a pretty hard question to like give like a good articulate, clean response. And then, or you can reverse that and you can do that for 100 other people. So you can think of 100 people that you know, or you know, it doesn't have to be 100, it can be like 20, 25, any number, and say, like for you, like Josh, like, hey, here's a letter of like, this is a moment in time when I saw you at your best. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, he's won his airtime. Yeah, so that's an example of like trying to build those positive thinking aspects into like reflecting moments. So you have, because like it is easy to get caught up in like day to day, and you're working, and then when you have kids and like making sure the kids are fine, and working kids, and then doing everything around that, and then not having that space time to breathe and reflect on how you got to where you are.
Yeah.
So I try to do that. Like it's been hard since COVID to like actually sit and find the time to like write like the bulk letters that I used to do. So I'm hoping to do that again, hopefully by the end of this year, when things settle down after number 2 is a little less wanting to be held.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh, I love that though. That's a great exercise, because we all need to kind of take a step back. But that's a great answer to the favorite film you worked on.
Yes. Which I didn't even answer.
I mean, you mentioned Peter Rabbit.
Yeah. So for the team, that one, for I guess like the historical aspect of it, like, it was really cool to work on Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Lego 2 was pretty cool in terms of I got to touch a lot of like a large span of things on that show. My boss for that show really trusted me and allowed me space to grow on that show. He's like, look, I'm going to put you in these positions. You may fail spectacularly, but don't worry. I'm going to make sure that you're going to be good.
Cool.
And he was a great boss for me. Like he really, like it's I'm very thankful for, like I've had great bosses for like pretty much everywhere I worked. Like it's been great. Like even like where I'm at now, like they really trust you to like make decisions that will improve what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like you got this like kind of effect of something happening to the main character, that they're being possessed, or like something's happening to them. And you're like, well, I tried doing this and it caused this kind of an effect. It kind of looks kind of cool. What you feeling? They're like, that's kind of cool, but what if we changed it just like this slightly, and then the director will probably go for it, and then show it to the director, and then the director will make yes or no, and then, or the director, like we've had a couple of clients where the clients will be like, oh, that's actually kind of cool, but can we just like change this color because like of whatever reasons they have, and then like, yeah, and then boom, done.
That's super cool.
Put it into the tech carts, and then we like do our pixel by pixel refinement checks on it and ship it out.
I'd be interested if that's becoming a more popular way of managing creative teams, because if you keep people too much into a box, that can actually stifle creativity and hinder what a potential a project could have. You're actually maybe keeping a thing like a film or a shot from being better because you've put so much pressure on these artists to stay within their confines, rather than, hey, you're empowered to make these decisions, because they always know they could reel it back or change that color. You know what I mean? But that's awesome that you've been put in these particular places. It's also indicator of the people that they're hiring, like yourself, where they hired the talent, and there's a reason why you hire talent, because they could do their job, and then they could just let them play.
Yeah, like for me, like historically, like I try, like when I'm applying to places, or like I try to go to places that I know have kind of that structure of the teams, like where there is trust and rapport. But so like what you're saying about like the dynamics between client and like the floor. Oh, pardon me. There's been I think it's really dependent on, it's dependent on a lot of factors, like between just even like the type of like which production company in LA or London or wherever it's being produced is working on. So the actual VFX houses that are in different time zones, and like who they've got in house for like that show. I mean, because like there could be people that are only on for the show, and then they go to another studio. I mean, it's they can treat it like very freelance even. But I mean, there's an understood expectation that it's the director's vision. They're trying to execute something visually that's in their mind that they want to get out and showcase, and then the producing teams are trying to get it to come out on a budget. Like, you don't want to, otherwise it's just an artistic exercise, which is fine. But when you have people that have like financial interests in it, then you kind of have to be more mindful of the budgeting. And then you have the people that are executing, that are like the skilled trades. Like for us, like we're hired to get that brief, execute it, and then every client's different. They may or may not want any feedback. Some are open to it. Some have, and it kind of depends on like if they have experience working with visual effects houses, because some directors, like, they don't work with it much, or they have another guy or gal that will like interface for them, and they won't even look at it until it's done, in quotation, and then it's in the edit, and then they'll only look at it as an edit. They don't want to see it like out of context. So they want to see it as it's like how it would actually play. So I think it's very fluid and very dependent, but like it's when it happens of like you get that collaborative aspect, it is a pleasure to work on those kind of projects.
Yeah.
Not every project will be like that, but there'll be one every so few that will come up and be like, oh, that was a pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a roller coaster. All right. One more. I knew rapid fire wouldn't be rapid.
No, I have
to be honest, and it's okay. All right. This one might be easier for you, might be hard. How do you define success?
Oh boy. Where's the dictionary?
That would be a first.
Oh,
I haven't actually looked at the actual definition of success. That might be interesting. Huh.
Yeah. It's very subjective and I'm sure like even in like non-artistic roles, like there's varying levels of like metrics that people have, like if they're successful, like even in life, but like,
yeah.
Oh man.
What's yours? It's your
Yeah,
definition.
my definition.
Chris Van Noy-March.
Well, if it's playing chess, it's if I win.
There it is, folks.
Um,
Winning.
no,
That's
but even at that, it's not even accurate because I'm teaching my niece how to play.
uh-huh.
My son like watched Bluey and like they have a chess episode, like so he's like wanting to set the board up with me and stuff, and
Aw.
so even it's more of like I want them to have fun, and like even like the casual like more like blitz nights and stuff, like when you're playing like shorter time controls, like it's like I want to have fun. Well, I get maybe that. So success for me is I'm having fun creating whichever thing is the task at hand, whether it's like in chess or like it's with my work or being a dad,
Love it.
because that's a pretty big thing. Like I really want to be active in my kid's life,
Uh-huh.
and like that nature of play, like being play led, was pretty big. There's a podcast here called How Other Dad's a Dad by Hamish. He's like a radio TV personality, comedian, jack of all trades kind of guy, but he that podcast goes about so he interview a lot of people that he's met over time that he knows are dads, and like will like interview like kind of like their philosophy and approach to dadding, as like, he calls it, as a verb. And Bluey does make an appearance quite a bit, like with because I know you haven't watched a lot of episodes because we were talking about this before.
No, she's not there
I
yet.
highly recommend it. I highly recommend it.
All right.
Watching it as like through a parent's lens, like I think you're in for a treat.
Cool.
Yeah. So like,
Look at that.
yeah. So like, Bluey's dad is with how he engages and plays on the shows. Like that's kind of how I like to foster those like core memory moments. So like when my kids are older and don't want to have anything to do with me, and they're like, Dad, no, I just want to hang with my buds. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, like,
Sure.
still love you. Like, okay,
That's wild to think about. But yeah.
I'll be making chicken and waffles or something. Just come back.
So having fun with what you're doing, whatever you're doing, enjoying it.
And I'll say like having fun and enjoyment with what you're doing, and you're accomplishing the task for what you got to do. I'll add that in for like for like the work aspect of it. So you're accomplishing what you're doing, but you're enjoying and having fun while you're doing it. And you feel like you're growing.
Yeah.
I think those are I think those would be like the pillars of like what success would be for me.
Mm-hmm. I think I share that a lot. I think many people do. That's a good one. And it's also I ask these questions across the board because for like inspiration and the success, that's why I pad it beginning and end, because there's so many similarities, no matter who I'm talking to, whether it's someone in film or a lawyer or a financial advisor or Santa Claus. Everybody, there's similarities across the board. So it's pretty cool. Good job in rapid fire, Chris. I believed we'd get through it. This is going to be a longer episode, but that's okay because it's worth it. I have a couple concluding questions.
Yes.
You mentioned the bonsai tree of trajectory earlier on, and I love that metaphor because careers in general and life in general is not a straight line. If you've got a straight line, I'm skeptical that you actually did. What is your, where are you in 5-10 years? Do you want to be a compositor? Do you want to be a matte painter? Do you want to direct eventually?
In 5 to 10 years, let's see. There is aspirations of like in leadership, because I find that even before film, I have a tendency to be quite successful at building up people into like being able to do like whatever the tasks that we're doing. So like when I worked at the advertising firm, I was, training people up and teaching them new tricks on how to do things. And then like I'll help out, the newer team members at whichever studio I've been at to share that knowledge and then see what the more experienced team has been doing. Like the team, like the folks have been doing this for like 20, 30 years, like seeing how they approach things and then like incorporate that in and like, oh, that's interesting. And then I'll add my flavor of like what I do. And then there'll be like someone new that comes in that's like very green, that's only maybe been doing this for like 6 months because they had like a training course. And then like, here's something that I messed up on, here's how to do this. And then, so something probably along the lines of leading, but what that looks like, I can't quite say because it's, I wouldn't mind.
Part of the bonsai.
Yeah, like it would be, if I'm incorporating that into like what I'm doing, I think that'll be good.
Cool.
It'd be cool to have on-set experience. I don't know, on the work and talked about that. That the caveat for that for me though is with the kids, because those are hard days. Like I really
long hours.
Because like it's not even just the hours, because you're not going home.
Yeah.
Usually, like, so like the people that have to go on set and like, and they're trying really hard to like think 15 steps ahead, sometimes even more, of like the problems that may arise based on past experience of the shows that are similar that they may have worked on, or of like, okay, if we do this way, I need to be aware and tell my team to be able to prepare like some kind of setup so that we're able to like with some agility to be able to hit the notes that we're going to end up, but we're probably going to encounter.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of juggling. So like I wouldn't mind doing that kind of stuff, but I probably like that kind of like degree of like supervision, I probably would want to wait until my kids are a bit older, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
But like when you're in house doing like lead role stuff, like it's probably what I would like to do in that regard. Travel more is what I would like to do. I'd like the flexibility to be able to travel and like see family and friends. Like like my wife and I, we talked about like it'd be nice if we were able to just have like a teleportation machine and just go see our friends, because like we do live in Australia and like it is geographically really far from our friends and family that are scattered around the world. Like you're in Florida, Zeb and Vance are in Indy. Like my childhood friend Luke, who was very like his family was very fundamental in helping me be who I was. Like when my mom was raising my sister and I on our own, and so like my sister is still in Indy, my mom's still in Indy, my grandma's still in Indy, and then Luke's in New England right now, and we've got friends that are like scattered for these SIGGRAPH like all over the world.
Everywhere. That's kind of the beauty of it. We'll always have destinations that we're eager to travel to, and there'll never be an end to it. You're just in a particular part of the world where it just the journey takes a little longer. But I'll tell you, you're not alone on wanting a teleportation machine.
Yep. Yeah. How long is it for you and Han and your wife to head back to Turkey for visiting family?
Well, if you count, we drive 4 hours to the Miami airport, and really that ends up being like a 4.5 hour drive. And then, you're in the airport for 2-3 hours before that. And honestly, you get there a day before so that just in case something happens, you don't miss your flight. Then it's an 11-hour flight. So, it's a day and a half, all things considered, because also you fly into Istanbul and then we've got to take either a bus or another flight to Ankara, the capital, where she's from. So, it's ridiculous, but it's worth it. I love going to Turkey, man. I was just thinking about it the other day, because like the last time I was there, I was on a run. I love running. And I went to the top of it's very mountainous over there. There's hills and stuff like that. So I just love the terrain there. And I looked way out in the distance and I saw this trail going up the top of the mountain, and I was like, I'm going to find that trail. And so I did. I just went through the city and found it, kind of kept my compass. And then that was like my daily run. Once I found that trail, and I went to the top and then came back and then went to the apartment. But it's like, I don't know. It's so worth it. But anyways, you like going through the mountains too. So I know you understand.
Yeah.
Traveling, man. We got the bug, Poland for me, like Singapore and Poland were foundational to,
same.
SIGGRAPH,
like just... that trip to, let's see, what was first? Was SIGGRAPH first or Poland was first? Well, SIGGRAPH 2008 for me was first.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I had traveled by myself, like ever, was to that SIGGRAPH. And then
to LA
when, because I volunteered. I was a student volunteer that year. And then, and then we went to Poland the next summer for the study abroad, like teaching experience that we did.
God, that was a great experience. We're going to have a part 2. Or like I was saying, a panel. I really, I've been thinking about that throughout this conversation. Once I brought it up, when I get an idea like that, I'm like, oh, a panel would be cool. And but I got one more question for you.
Okay.
Then I'll let you go, because it's morning for you, it's night for me, and I want to go hang out with my wife. And I know your kid just popped in. I bet they want to hang out with their pops.
It's close to lunchtime here on in the future.
Yeah. Wow. I always ask this of people, is no matter who's listening, whether they're in film and animation or whatever they do, and wherever they are in their trajectory, old, young, what's the biggest piece of advice you could give anyone listening?
Biggest piece of advice. The thing that's kind of sticking out to me right now, like being on the spot, is to keep trying and like because I think about this sometimes, like where you're trying so hard to either achieve a goal of something, like whether it's in sport or anything, and if you put in the work, you'll like, I believe you'll eventually get there. Like, yes, like talent has an aspect to it, but I think like there's like, you can even like almost make it into like a mathematical equation, almost like, it's like a metric of a success, so to speak, is like a measure of like talent and the work you put into it and the opportunity. And I remember when we were in school, Dr. B, who was our head of department for us, and like one of our professors, he would always say something. I'm trying to remember how he would say. There's a quote from somebody. It was like, "Chance favors the prepared."
Yeah, right.
So that's something that I think about a bit. So it's, I guess, like because I've come close to quitting a few times, like in my career, of like before I got to where I am now in film. Like it just felt like I wasn't getting there, and like there were opportunities that came up that I was either too scared or I didn't feel I was ready, so I just didn't take them. Like one that I joke about now is, like, I could have worked on the first the Godzilla 2014 film if I had just left home, but I didn't. Now every time there's a Godzilla or King Kong project that comes on, like I'm always like just missing them. It's like, so it's kind of a running joke with like friends, like, oh, guess what I just worked on? I'm like, I don't want to hear it. But
I like that. I like that. Yeah,
like,
chance favors the prepared. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I use a lot of Dr. B's phrases.
Dr. B's great. He's a good man. He made that Poland experience happen.
Yeah, he and Dan selected us, and Kevin selected us to be on that team.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
And we were roommates throughout that, so that was even more special because we got to spend the month together.
Yep.
That was a special time. And I just want to let you know, like, I know you're across the world, but I think about you a lot, and I'm inspired by you. And, I look forward to coming over there with my family and our kids playing together.
I
And
will show you everything.
I look forward to that, man. Yeah. And I appreciate your time. I know, you are a busy guy and working on a lot of stuff, and we've got the time difference. And I appreciate you very much, Chris. Much love to your family. And thanks again for coming on, sharing your wisdom.
Much love.